You have questions? We have answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box with your host, Miss Lindsay Schiss.
Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box, where we're not afraid of anything, so ask away. We're here to tackle your tough questions. Today I have with me Kathy Kinghorn, CSAT trained and co-owner of Therapy Utah, a dear friend of mine and a mentor. Kathy likes to consider herself a hope merchant. Kathy, can you tell me a little bit, why do you consider yourself a hope merchant?
You know, I kind of stumbled across that one day in a session, and I feel like we as therapists sell hope. We really do. People come in and they may start with, I'm angry about this or this really hurt. But a lot of times I'm feeling hopeless. And I realize that a big part of our role is to sell hope in that might sound pie in the sky or something, but it's very practical as well. We need hope. We need to believe in the better future.
I love that it's not just the muck that I'm in right now, but there's something more. It sounds like perspective too,
right?
That you offer that to people.
Yes.
I love that. Great. So today we're going to be talking about purpose. What is our purpose and why it matters, right? It feels a little bit like a weighty topic, but it's something at one point or another in all of our lives that we seem to ask ourselves. Why do you think it's something that we come back to? Why do we ask ourselves this?
That's a great topic, Lindsay. I think we're living in an age that as I've pondered on this, it's kind of an anti-human age. It's like humans are destroying the planet. Humans are, we need to have computers be better than humans. It just seems to be this cadence of insinuation that being a human is not all it's cracked up to be. If there were less of us, it would be better. If there were less humans that thought differently than me, it would be better. All of this, and there's probably a better word than anti-human, but I think why having a purpose is so important is it actually does set us apart from the digital computers and all of the data that doesn't have a purpose. We can program in, but we can't program in purpose.
Oh, I love that idea that there's some anti-human happening in the world. I haven't really thought about that, but that's a really good point. That is happening. And as humans, we're feeling replaced in some ways, and that our skill set may be replaceable. So we've got to find really our purpose, right? The things that can't be replaced, that a computer can't replace, right?
Right. And believe in ourselves as contributing to this earth, not just takers, but contributing to each other. We're social beings. We have a connection. And I think, like you said at the beginning, weighty topic, what's our purpose? But when you just get it in the weeds of it, in the little micro moments in life, think about last week. I'd ask our viewers, think about last week. Who do you remember that you ran into? It literally might just be the person that let you merge into a lane.
That might be, remember.
If you live in Utah,
that's a big deal.
That would be memorable.
Right. True.
And you're like, yeah, somebody was kind to me. And those small kindnesses, that's what we remember. And I think when we think of purpose, it does feel like, whoa, I've got to really figure this out and know it. And then once I know it, that's got to be my billboard. But when we're purpose driven, it's really, how do we live in integrity with who we want to be?
I love that. How do we live in integrity with who we want to be? So that really does bring me with our question from a listener. And I want you to kind of think about that with that, what you were just saying. Who am I living in the way with who I want to be? So here's the question. This is from a listener, and this is what it says. I'm not sure a therapist is the right person to ask about this, but I'm wondering if you have any suggestions about how to explore my life's purpose. I was raised very religious and I still go to church every week, but it's hard for me to connect with who or what I'm supposed to be. It's hard to believe that anyone really cares what's going on for me, even my family members. They're all busy with their lives and their activities, and we don't spend much time together. The time we do spend, everyone's on their phones or in a rush to move on to the next thing. So here is when I'm listening to this, it's really again saying, what is my purpose? I really feel disconnected to the people around in my life, and I'm trying to figure out who and what I'm supposed to be. I think a lot of people may struggle with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, first, it's such a great question because I think most of us have that question about that disconnect. That's what I hear in it. Do you know that loneliness has the same impact on us as on our life span as smoking 15 cigarettes a day?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it shortens our life the same as it would if we smoked 15 cigarettes a day.
So it's a physical impact,
Yeah.
not just an emotional, mental impact, but
Yeah.
there's an actual physical ramification when we're disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that question about how do I find purpose is really saying, how do I connect into myself and others? Because we're not only losing that connection between us, it's within us.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think, first of all, it's so important to connect with ourselves before we can connect with others? And why are we losing it? What's going on there? So let's start with the first. Why? Why is it that we have lost our connection with ourselves?
I think that the fears of this generation are different. And I would say that one of the fears is not, and probably have to edit this because
it's good. Let me start it again.
Yeah. Okay.
So tell me, Kathy, why do you think the fears of this, like losing connection to self, why is that a big deal? Why is it happening? Why are we losing connection to ourselves? Why do you think?
I think one reason is because we're more aware that it's okay to connect to ourselves. We have opportunities now to connect with people and understand who we are, what we want to do in life. In my day, it was much more linear. Here's what you do. And whether or not you were connected to yourself, not really on the agenda, not really spoken about. It wasn't, so now you're getting this really lovely idea that, hey, who am I? Who am I? I never thought of that. And so I think it came out of that question, which is a great question. We always have to get the question right because all the answers follow the question.
For sure. Great
question. So one of the answers to that would be, I don't know. And once we feel like we don't know something, we panic. Often we panic. So we go, well, if I don't know where to ask the question. So I'm just not going to look there. I'm just not going to go there. And so I think it started because of a lovely shift in our society, but people can panic over not knowing. And then it devolved into that fear of not just, I don't know how to do it, but what if I find something that I really don't, I just can't look at,
That feels really uncomfortable. So sitting in that uncertainty, you're saying is actually feels very uncomfortable, but it's actually where maybe some of the magic lies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
The willingness to sit in that, right? So once we figure that out, okay, what if I find something I'm uncomfortable with, but I'm okay to look at that with curiosity, maybe less judgment, but more curiosity. How does that help me connect with other people?
Well, in a lot of ways, it can get you more curious about other people. It can expand your idea that maybe there's two ways to get to the end. And one of them doesn't look like anything I've ever experienced. So I'll give you an example. When my husband and I got married, we both have a value of hard work. We were raised to work hard. We align with that value pretty solid. I knew that when I married him.
So probably something that attracted you to him.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. So we were doing yard work one Saturday and just, busting it out. And I came in the house and he was laying in bed watching TV. I literally thought I thought he'd gotten hurt. I thought he'd sprained his ankle. I was like, what is going on right now?
Sure.
He stopped working.
This is not what we do.
I know.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, hey, I'm just, watching a couple of holes on the golf game. And Lindsay, I literally had to leave the room and go, I don't know what's happening. You're not supposed to just lay down in the middle of a day
Right.
when you're supposed to work,
Interesting.
And so I had just never experienced anything like that. And so luckily, as I went back, not right away, took me a long time to even broach the subject. And he was just as confused as I was. He was like,
What's the problem?
what?
Yeah.
What is going on right now? What is this conversation? I mean, have you ever had that with your husband where you're like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. Why are we in an argument? What just
Yes.
happened? Yeah.
Yeah. And what I found is resting actually rejuvenates.
Mm.
And when he's on a project, he's much more precise with it rather than my attitude of we're getting it done.
Mm.
And that was close enough and we're calling it good. There was a lot of value in watching him. Immediately what I saw was that's lazy.
Mhm.
I mean, that's embarrassing, but I'm just going to say, I was just like, he tricked me. He's really a lazy person.
Right. SOS, we're in trouble. No, right.
But so when we get to talking about our purpose and somebody else's purpose, if we get curious about how they obtain that purpose, how they stay to that course, it can look it can look completely different
Sure.
than how we do it. And it can open us up to maybe moving a little bit towards how they do it and having them move a little towards how we do it.
Mm.
Then we're more connected because we see that effort. We see that good people do things in a variety of ways and they're good people. They think of things differently and they're good people,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea because what it requires is us to sit in some discomfort
Yeah.
and to say, you know what, that isn't the way I would do it, but that's the way he's doing it. It doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you were talking, it made me think, you know what? That was a person who chose to honor himself. He was tired.
Yes.
So he chose to honor himself and connect with himself, right? Instead of pushing and slogging through, he actually chose to take a break.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So when we
Yes.
really consider connecting with ourselves, that's exactly what he was actually doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No shame about it.
Right.
Now, if he would have taken on the shame I was really trying to push on him and change him so that he did it the right way, man, we would have had a bump in our marriage that was so unnecessary, absolutely unnecessary.
Absolutely. Right. And sometimes our own feelings of shame or our own expectations are what are reflected back to our partner, right? Well, because I think this, or this is what makes me worthy and a hard worker or enough, then therefore that's what you need to be as well, right?
Yep.
So excellent example. I love that. Really important to, as we think about that, is the willingness to allow people to show up as their own best selves. And that might look really different, right? And paths are really different and pace is really different. But if we allow that, then we have the opportunity to have real connection, I would imagine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really beautiful. So when we think about that, values come to my mind. And we have a listener question about values. And here's what it is. It says, I keep hearing a lot about values lately. I feel like I know my values, but then when I think about it, I wonder if they are just values that I've been taught or been told are my values. So why are values really important? And I know with you, you work with people that are overcoming sexual and different types of addiction. So I imagine values are really important. But I'm curious your thoughts on values. I don't think they're as clear cut as maybe what we make them out to be.
Yeah, what a great question. We've got great listeners.
We
These are powerful questions.
Thoughtful.
Yeah, yeah. The way I look at values is we're all on this earth and we have this opportunity to take the journey that we choose. And I think the values are tools that we pick up for that journey. Like for my journey, I'm going to pick up hard work.
Right. We heard that earlier. Yeah.
I'm going to pick up honesty. I'm going to pick up loyalty. I'm going to pick up all of these tools. And as I learn and grow, I'm going to learn how to use different tools.
Mm,
Like I struggled with feedback early in my career,
mm.
and I did not have that tool. I not only didn't have it, didn't want it.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so then I embraced that tool.
Mm,
So I think that our beliefs are how we use the tools.
love that.
So if we have a tool of like if we bring an axe on a camping trip and we go, we're just going to use this axe for everything. Whatever's needed, this is the only tool.
Mm.
Then that's not gonna really serve us. And other people are gonna maybe suggest, hey, it might be easier rather than an axe to do that because you're gonna, break the tent post or something. Use this. Nope,
Mm.
I'm using my axe. It's like if we get really rigid in our belief about how we use that tool. So take for example loyalty. Um, I think that's a powerful tool. Whether you're in a coupleship or on your own, loyalty is powerful. And we can think, well, that's a given. There's one way to use it, be loyal.
Sure.
But some people, when they partner with somebody, they feel like, hey, I'm going to go on a backpacking trip with my buddies. And the other person can go, you're abandoning me. You're
Mm.
not loyal to us. How
Mm.
could you do that? Why would you do that? And really that person is going, I'm confused. I'm loyal. I just thought going with my buddies was okay. And so if we just say that loyalty has this little box it's in and here's how it looks like, we miss opportunities to see that people that we're associated with and connected to need to connect with other people. And they just and that tool shows up and it's still there. They're just using it differently.
Nice. But it makes me actually think of your previous example. Like it still was a value. Hard work was still a value of your husband,
Yeah.
but he was just choosing to use it differently than the way you were.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
so the willingness to say, okay, the value might be the same, but the
Mhm.
way we choose to utilize it is different.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I heard was flexibility, that like at the
Mhm.
beginning of your career, that feedback wasn't something you were great at,
Mm-hmm.
but you've realized the value of it now. And so it's a tool
Mhm.
in your tool belt that you can utilize now,
Mhm.
right? So
Right.
I like that idea that it's not just one way and then we're done forever. And these are
Mhm.
these are my values and this is what it has to be, but they evolve as we evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah. And I think that oftentimes people get their beliefs confused with their values.
Mm,
You know, how, like I said, as we go on this journey with these tools, what we believe they're useful for usually should evolve over time
sure.
as we mature and see different ways and see that we can be flexible and times change and things change, that our beliefs expand.
Mm,
And by expanding our beliefs, ironically, it allows us to get a better relationship with our values.
mm. Why is
You
that?
know? Because if I believe that good people do these things,
Sure.
right? That's a belief.
Hmm.
Now, if I'm real, if that's my belief to start with, I can expand on that belief and go, well, wait a minute. I've seen people that like serve their community. I have a friend that does civic service volunteers her whole life, her
Mm,
whole entire life. I've rarely done any civic duties, rarely. Now, if the belief is good people contribute to their community, then I'm just not a good person.
mm. Got it.
But if the belief is good people, and there's a subjective word that we could talk about, right?
Yeah, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
That good people show up in a variety of ways and contribute, some to the larger stage, sometimes to the smaller stage, but there's lots of different ways to contribute and be good stewards of the earth, good stewards to each other, good stewards to ourselves. That belief expands, and then my value of service also gets narrowed in.
Mm. That's so valuable as you say that, because it makes me again go back to again that example. it's not about the way you're doing it, but it's that there's a variety of ways to do the same thing, but
Mhm.
it's what is congruent to you. And it's
Mhm.
going to be different than what's congruent to me,
Yeah,
right?
it's so true. I mean, in my situation, the only like trait or that my husband and I have in common is we've both asked each other the question, what were you thinking?
Mhm. This will happen. Yeah.
I mean, we are so different. I don't know how much more different we could be. So we could have used that to tear us apart, or we could have said, you know what? We have this same set of tools,
Mm.
these same values. We do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're going to see them used in a variety of ways.
For sure. And sometimes wonder, what were you thinking?
Yes,
Right.
yes, even us.
Right. That makes
Yes.
sense for sure. But the willingness to hold space for that
Yeah.
really matters.
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Last question. And this is really more about connection, right? So as we're talking about purpose and how people often feel disconnected, we live in a digital world. I think this falls upon a lot of us and a lot of our hearts. So the question is, I want to feel more connected to others, but I often feel lonely, even when I'm in a large group with a lot of people. Why is this, and how can I feel more connected?
I think because of the lack of eye contact in our society.
Mm,
There's a lot of research, and I geek out on research,
I
Lindsay.
do know that. Yes. It's all good. I've been the beneficiary, so it's okay.
But we, even from a small age, children are losing eye contact, and it's desperately needed in relationship. So if you're feeling like you're not connected even when you're in a group, honestly, the environment that you're living in has put some barriers just for natural connection of I'm not looking at my phone, so I'm going to look at you. I might greet you. I mean, I went to the store the other day and didn't have my phone, and I found myself smiling at people or commenting to the person behind me while I was standing in line. And I really did think that wouldn't have happened if I would have had my phone. So we're all in this place of um, having this barrier sometimes with purpose. I have anxiety. I don't want to connect to anyone right now because I'm barely being able to be in the room. And so the phone puts that distance so that you could just show up,
Sure.
So it's little tiny movements like try not taking your phone into a situation and just see how that feels. And I bet you'll find that you'll naturally have more eye contact.
Yeah.
Once that happens, you'll naturally likely engage more. Now, and I'm real introverted in social situations. I avoid them for the most part because I've had to learn skills to make social situations comfortable for me.
Yeah.
So that question, I'm biased towards, a lot of people would say, well, just jump in and learn, go to these activities where you have a common thing. When you're an introvert, that's very challenging, very
Sure.
challenging.
Sure. And you can see that the phone is a kind of protective device, right? It just feels like, okay, I don't have to engage because that feels really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it probably further isolates you and keeps you more disconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there becomes like a confirmation bias. Well, nobody noticed I was there anyway, so why should I go back? Or nobody came and asked me anything, so why would I reach out to somebody? So you start I'm going to throw out one stat, okay?
That's great. I'm here for it.
We are down to about they did a survey I think back in the 60s, and people trusted each other just over 60%. We're down just below 30% now. Of just in America, do you trust people?
Oh,
Just below 30%.
wow.
When we don't trust people, we get suspicious.
Mhm.
Why did you come up and talk to me? What do you want from me? Are you going to take too much of my time? So we're starting to create suspicion where, again, before this digital age, there wasn't as much suspicion. The default was, I can trust you.
Yes.
Now the default is prove that I can trust you.
That's such a different paradigm where we're coming from, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and problematic, right? So how do we
Mhm.
start on an individual level to change that? Like, what would
Mhm.
that look like? Does it look like, okay, I just leave my phone at home at certain times?
Mhm.
I try to engage with people. Maybe I just make eye contact or smile. Like,
Mhm.
what are the things that you think we can do? Because when you say that, it feels like, oh my gosh, we got to turn this ship around. But boy, how? Like, I believe it would start with individuals, but
Mhm.
I would just be curious your thoughts on that.
One is, if we don't trust others, let's work on trusting ourselves first. And what I mean by that is, can I remove myself from it, from a situation that doesn't feel safe? So if I'm in a situation and maybe somebody, I feel like they're between me and the door, and that doesn't feel good to me. Not a statement necessarily against them, but it doesn't feel good to me. Do I have the ability to say,
You mean they're physically in
yeah,
between me and the door?
yeah,
Got it. Okay.
yeah. Do I have the ability to say, excuse me, I'm going to walk out here for a minute? Or
Mm.
do I have this really strong people pleaser part that goes, well, now I'm here and I'm boxed in and I can't do anything, and my anxiety is starting to raise? So understanding that I can trust myself
Mm.
to move away from situations that don't feel comfortable yet. That same scenario may feel entirely comfortable down the road, or with a different person, or in a different situation. But if we can't trust ourselves to get us to a safer place, or at least that feels safer, then we won't be able to do those small, little moves of making contact or showing up. So whole nother podcast on boundaries and personal safety and stuff.
Yes, so good. It really is, it's a perfect way to wrap up, because it makes me think again, back to your original example. Your husband chose to trust himself, and he
Yeah.
chose to trust himself and said, you know what, I need a break. And that's actually what I'm going to do, is take a break. Same principle. Like, when I can trust myself, then I build trust and I start to find trust in others.
Yeah.
Right. So it starts
Absolutely.
with us,
Yeah.
which means we got some work to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Continual work to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Really great. Well, thank you so much, Kathy. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Always is. And love the thoughts and insights that you had about our life's purpose and connection, and how we can be more connected to ourselves and others. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends, rate it and review it, and we'll see you next time.